It's Johnny Jones. I'm here at home today with the Boman CB-930. Now, this is going to be a long one, guys, because I had to do a lot of things to get this radio actually set up, and then I'm going to go into a little bit of the history of this radio and Cybernet chassis, and a little bit of the history of the CB radio band. Now, first off, this radio did not have the common Cobra mic configuration. So I set out to make this table here that has just a couple pieces of wood cut at an angle, and then I have some high gauge wire, low gauge wire set up here with these clips, these little alligator clips, because I have trouble when I'm soldering mics because they just flop around everywhere. So I made this to actually change the mic end. But I ended up searching around in my huge box of mics and found a Midland that worked. It looks like it may have been converted anyway, but it worked and I didn't have to do that. So, although it's not going to get any use for this specific radio, it did come in handy for something that I had to do to the power cord. And of course it'll come in handy in the future. So these are really easy to make. Try to make one yourself. It's great having multiple hands, basically, because soldering is a pain in the ass if you don't have but two hands. And if you got one hand, shit. If you got one hand, I don't know. Okay, maybe make one with three of these. You got one hand. So, first off, after making this, I had to make a connector for the back. And I'll show you the back. Now, I have this hooked up to a dummy load. But you can see that connector there is not one that I have available. The input for the power cord is not something that I have, as you can see. Let me move the light. It's a little different. Nothing that I have available. Now, it looks almost like an AC power cord, and that kind of scares me because someone might try to plug one of those in there, but hopefully they won't. I did try an AC power cord, not hooked up to the wall, just to see if I could use the connector on the end, but it's a little bit too large, so it won't fit, luckily. So, what I had to do, and I'll show pictures of this, I had to take two little connectors, wire connectors, and I found out that they fit right on the ends of these little prongs here, and I took those, and I clipped them down, and I put them on a regular AC cord and soldered it together, and by God, as ugly as it is, it looks like this. Yeah, whoopee. Johnny Jones did a great job on that. Okay, fine. But, as you can see here, if I can do this one-handed, it does actually plug in. Yay! Now, of course, it does stick out somewhat there, but I'm going to go ahead and put a fuse in line with this. This was basically a cord I just hacked off of an old broken radio, and I'm just going to put a fuse in line here, and that way if anything touches those together, if something lays across that, it'll just blow the fuse, 2-amp fuse, and we won't have to worry about that too much. So that's not going to be an issue. So we have our Nintendo Wii power supply set up here, and we got it plugged into the back here. We're going to see if it turns on, which it does, but there's a couple issues with it. Now, this radio, I'm going to do whatever I can to get this radio fixed. It's a beautiful radio. I think this radio looks better than every Cobra I've ever seen. I think it's just the sides here. It's just, I don't know. There's just something about this radio that just looks so damn cool. So let's go ahead and see what it does. So it comes on. The light, the LED for the signal meter comes on. See, I'm going to keep these off. The PA I have not tried personally, but I don't think it's going to work because, unfortunately, the modulation light does come on, but there is no modulation whatsoever. Even checking the mic and shorting the transmit pin out, it's still not going to send anything. So I need to probably check the caps and check the final transistor, see what's going on with that. But as it's very low, you can't hear it. Let me turn it up. So the volume's all the way up now. It's very low. I don't have an antenna hooked to this. I have a dummy load, but it picks up very minutely with an antenna with all the gain up and the volume up. So yeah, very quiet, very soft. So definitely need some caps changed in this, which I will probably recap. Now, recapping is not something I do on a video because literally everyone has seen recapping before, and why would you want to watch a video of me soldering? So most of the jobs that I do on radios, I recap them. There's stuff going on behind the scenes here that you guys don't see, but I just don't feel like they're worth putting in a video, you know? I mean, sometimes I'll record it, but it's like, who wants to watch me putting caps in a radio? Now, if you feel different about that, if you have a different opinion, then leave it in the comments. If you want to see me put caps and shit, I'll put 1,000,000 caps in everything. Okay, but let's go ahead and turn the gain down here, and let's see if we can say something into it, what it does. Woo! Okay. Volume too high. Our RF gain was down. I figured it wouldn't do that, but let's check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 3 4. Okay, so it does receive, but and the needle does swing, obviously, but there's no transmit whatsoever, and the receive is really low. So it needs a lot of work, I'd say, but it's worth it. It's really worth it. Now, if the transistor is bad, the transistor that came in this is a Toshiba 25C1678, which I looked up the specs on, and it's a 4-watt final. They didn't go overboard. They just put a stock 4-watt final in this, so it's not something you could probably crank up to 20 watts or anything. This was made by Boman Industries. It's a 1970s Cybernet chassis. It was made in 1978. There are 2 different versions of this radio, of this model actually, the CB-930. There's a 40-channel version and a 23-channel version that came out in 1978. So this was right around the time of the 40-channel band. The 40-band channel, we'll redo this one. So being made in 1978, it was right after the 40 channels were introduced to the CB band. Now, 90% of our radios at the time came from Japan. They were made in Japan, and they went under names like, Cybernet went under names like Lafayette, RCA, General Electric, Midlands, Craco, and 24 other names, and basically they couldn't use them in Japan. It wasn't legal to use a CB radio in Japan, but they shipped them over here and sold them to us. So a lot of these radios from this period of time will come from Japan, and you'll obviously see that on most of the back plates. It's stamped into that. But the thing is, and the wonderful thing, is that around the CB boom, there was a lot of smaller companies that were making radios that were less than great quality because they were capitalizing on the CB radio craze. Same thing with the fidget spinners today. The fidget spinners came out, and then every company were trying to make them, and of course they were poorly constructed knockoffs. Why did the fidget spinner take off? I have no idea. Wouldn't be something I was interested in. But still, same concept. But in 1977, when 40 channels came out, the people that wanted to continue making CB radios had to invest a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of research to change their manufacturing lines and, of course, the components that they needed to create 40 channel radios. So what happened was that the smaller companies got squeezed out. They couldn't compete with these 40 channel manufacturers, so they just died out. So a lot of these radios at the time, around 77 to 80 I would assume, were really great radios because they had to be built by reputable companies that knew what they were doing. And I've seen this firsthand. Radios from this time still work to this day. Usually they just need a cap job and they're good. They're up and working. The Sears Road Talker, the Cobra 1977 Cobra XLR, still working, still transmitting, and still useful. Now, almost forgot to say that looking through the forums online of people talking about Cybernet versus Uniden, they say, and this seems to be a common consensus, is that the Uniden seems to have better transmit than the Cybernet chassis. The Cybernet chassis seem to be a little messier as far as the wiring jobs, but they say the Cybernet has much better receive. So transmit's better on Uniden, and the receive is better on a Cybernet chassis, from what I can hear, from what I can read. And apparently, multiple cases have happened of people not being able to hear someone with a Uniden, and then the guy right beside of them can pick up the guy out of the noise with the Cybernet chassis. So I'm looking forward to really getting this thing working and hearing the difference for myself, if I can tell anyway. And I'd love to do a video on that, a comparison side by side, and see if that's true, or if maybe people just got lucky in their similar experiences. Now, a lot of where I got this information was from an article, and I believe the New York Times, from 1976, which if I can find it again, I will leave a link to in the description, because, hey, might be good reading for you CB guys. And I would go over the various knobs and switches in this radio, but unfortunately it doesn't work, so I can't show you too much about it. But it does have a great thing about these early 40 channel radios is they seem to be fleshed out. They knew that if you're going to spend 40 or spend a lot of money on 40 channels, that you wanted everything. So they had the Delta Tune, they had the CB monitor, which you can't transmit on, but you can still listen, noise blinker, A&L, and of course SWR bridge inside. Calibration, of course, the SWR calibration knobs there. Even had a dimmer. Now, forgot to show you this. Dimmer does work. Ooh, that gets real dark, doesn't it? Yeah, the dimmer still works. RF gain, squelch as usual, and the volume and off knob. So I want to get this thing going. So if I can, and I'm going to keep this in my closet forever until I am smart enough to fix it, if push comes to shove and I don't know what's wrong with it, I will keep this forever till I figure out what's wrong with it, because I want this in a truck. I want this somewhere. I love the look of this radio. A lot more projects coming up. A bunch of eBay lots, by the way. A lot of eBay lots coming up that I just got today. I'm going to do a video on, and a couple paint jobs I'm going to mention. Pretty cool. Anyways, until next time, it's Johnny Jones. I'm here at home, and I'll see you later.